future. I call the Minister for the Environment.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and that was a cracker. That was an absolute beauty. When asked about what's their policy on renewables, no answer. When asked about what's their emissions reduction target, no answer, despite the fact for the last month they've been telling us they have a 50% renewable energy target, not one reference. Why is that? Why is that? Why is he ashamed, and why is he unable to talk about it? And why nothing about the 40 to 60% emissions reduction target for the entire country? What we see here is that when they are confronted with the reality of their policies for electricity, for householders, for gas, for refrigerants, for all of these elements, they shy away from them. In the same way that there was going to be no carbon tax, in the same way that they were going to terminate the carbon tax at the last election, in the next election they'll have a commitment to an ETS. But their own policy that was revealed on the front page of the Daily Telegraph a few weeks ago said they wouldn't put the modelling out before the election. They wouldn't put the modelling out. Well, how courageous and how honest is that? But there has been a moment of honesty. The member for Hunter, in an interview on the Andrew Bolt program, said, one, of what their renewable energy target, it's not a policy, it's an aspiration. It's just an aspiration. And then asked how much it would cost. How much work had the ALP done? What did he say? No one knows. That's the truth of it. No one knows. From the words of the ALP themselves, what does their policy cost? No one knows. Well, we know. They haven't done the work, but we have. And this work is in line with what ACIL Tasman has themselves said. ACIL Tasman has talked about a range of between $65 and over $100 billion. The Department of Environment work says an $85 billion capex cost for their policy, a $70 billion renewable energy credit cost for their policy. Those facts are real, and if they want to dispute them, show us. Confirm what the policy is. Show us the answers, because we are absolutely clear about what the impacts will be. By contrast, what we have is a 23.5% renewable energy target recently voted through on a bipartisan basis. Why? Because precisely the phantom credits problem we'd warned about before the last election came to pass. The impacts were real and significant on the industry. By contrast, we will deliver a doubling of renewable energy under the renewable energy target over the next 5 years. We'll deliver a doubling, at least, in terms of small-scale solar over the coming years. We've already seen two major announcements in recent weeks since the conclusion of that legislation, that theirs is, on the renewable energy side, a 50% target that they're running away from. It's suddenly an aspiration. It's a policy which is uncosted, according to the member for Hunter. And if you have any differences in terms of your own policy, let us know. But we have costed it using conservative modelling at an $85 billion capital cost and a $70 billion electricity cost in terms of renewable energy credits. So beyond that, though, beyond that, a doubling on our side of large-scale renewable energy under the target, a doubling of small-scale solar under the target. They're the realities, and they're the things that we're getting on with. But then we turn to something broader, because most of the member opposite's speech was about the international targets and the domestic objective. Well, what Australia has done today under this government is add to the achievements of the past. We are one of the few countries to have met and beat Kyoto 1 and to be on track to meet and beat Kyoto 2. They're the realities. For all the talk, we're one of the good guys that's done the right thing by the world. We've actually committed. We've actually committed. And now we see we have put on the table a -26 to -28% target for 2005 to 2030. The United States, -26 to -28 for 2025. We see that Japan is -25, Korea is -4%, China is approximately +150%. And then you see that with New Zealand and Canada clustered around the -30%. So we are in very good company. We are doing better than many others. But then we also see that of all the developed countries, of all the major economies, we are the highest per capita reductions. The highest per capita reductions. So when we talk about people making a contribution, on our watch, Australia will do the heavy lifting. And we're proud of that. I'm really delighted. I am thrilled with the outcome today. It is better than I had ever hoped, and I am really delighted that Australia has made this commitment, and it will serve us well over time. By comparison, though, what we see is something very interesting. A Labor Party which over the recent weeks committed to and has frequently publicised the fact that they want to go for a -40 to -60 target. They want to have a -40 to -60 target, but that's on 2000 figures. It's a higher figure of 2005. And what does it mean? As we saw yesterday, using their own modelling of by their own government of their own target, using their own carbon tax, $600 billion at a carbon price of $209 per tonne. And what does that translate to? That translates to a $5,000 per household impact in $5,000 per household impact in 2030. And if you've got an alternative, let us know. If you've got an alternative, let us know. Pretty well, thanks, mate. How about you? Because you guys, according to Joel Fitzgibbon, no one knows what's the truth of it. And what we will do is to continue an emissions reduction fund which has delivered four times the emissions reduction of the entire carbon tax and electricity tax experiment. We delivered 47 million tonnes at $13.95 per tonne of abatement, contracted by the Clean Energy Regulator, conducted in an independent auction by an independent agent of government. And that could not be a better outcome through a better process. By contrast, what we saw on the other side was a policy which delivered abatement at well over $1,000 per tonne. It's not the cost of carbon, it's the cost per tonne of abatement. 12 million tonnes at $15 billion. 12 million tonnes at $15 billion. And that's the reality. And so right now, what we want to know, how much will your carbon tax cost? How much will it hurt Australian families? How much will electricity rise? Because these are the figures which their own modelling shows from their own time in government about their own policy. $600 billion at a carbon tax of over $200 at $209 per tonne, $5,000 per household, and a 78% increase in wholesale electricity prices. We used their modelling. We draw their modelling, published by the climate change mitigation scenarios prepared by the Treasury and the Department of Industry, Innovation, Climate Change, Science, Research and Tertiary Education when they were in government. Not us, them. Not our modelling, their modelling. By the Treasury and the Department of Industry. They are hoist on their own petard. So the Australian families and the Australian pensioners will pay higher electricity prices because of this 50% renewable aspiration. And I say that knowing that they know it won't be achieved, that what it will lead to, as we saw, is a massive carbon tax equivalent. More than that, they then add on top of it an emissions trading scheme, which is a carbon tax by any other name, and they do that against a target of -40 to 60%. Those are their policies. So what we have done is what a government should do. We've modelled, we've planned, we've prepared, we've released, we've briefed, we've consulted, we've done all of the things. They created a 50% figure out of thin air. As Joel Fitzgibbon said, how much will it cost? No one knows. That's the truth of it. They haven't done the modelling, and they won't do the modelling. And what did Joel Fitzgibbon call their emissions trading scheme? You can call it a tax if you like. And so what do we see at the end of the day? a tax on households, a policy that they haven't modelled, but we know it's an $85 billion capital cost and a $600 billion economic cost for the two together.
And I call the honourable